First, I'd just like to note that luckily I was informed that we had moved from the Christ Fellowship Church, and I went online to get the address. And I just want to note that it actually gave the address at the Cutler Ridge mini station. I believe it's 9827 South or Hibiscus Street or something. Yeah. We got there and it was all shuttered, closed up.
We brought that up before.
Okay.
It hasn't been changed yet.
All right. The real reason I'm here tonight is I'd like to ask a simple question, and I'd like if I could maybe get a simple answer. I've had issues I've brought up here before, and the question is, I'd like to know, why is it that no action will either affect an arrest, or that my case will be passed on to another agency that will affect an arrest, or why these actions have not already been taken, or what must I do so that federal and Florida statutes are not ignored and police department policies are upheld? Based on what I'm getting ready to tell you, any prudent person would reasonably find that these actions, or more correctly, lack of actions, to be at best a dereliction of duty, and at worst an affront to justice. I hope after presenting the facts to follow that a solution can be found and justice can be pursued. This story began in October 2012 because of a Homestead police officer, Alejandro Merguido. He was driving erratically through my neighborhood, placing me in fear for the safety of my children and my community. I asked him to mind his driving through my neighborhood. After this encounter, Alejandro Merguido chased me down and called the Miami-Dade Police Department. He responded and held me for over an hour and a half. There were other civil rights violations committed against me by both the Homestead and Miami-Dade officers who responded. The report was written as a simple neighbor dispute. However, despite this, Miami-Dade officers saw fit to come to my house 6 months later and arrest me without a warrant for alleged crimes that were not going to go stale. During this arrest, my rights were again violated, at least because none of the officers that I dealt with over the next several hours would tell me why I had been arrested, even after repeated requests. This is a clear violation of the legal requirements for an arrest without a warrant under Florida Statute 901.17, and I feel it was a further attempt to intimidate me. So far, because of the wrongful actions of officers involved, I've had to spend about $20,000 in legal fees and associated costs. This does not include the many countless hours and many days of lost productivity I've had to endure while pursuing justice. This is time and resources that could have and should have been devoted to my family, particularly my 3 small children. However, officers of the Miami-Dade Police Department have in one way or another thwarted me at every attempt to bring my evidence forward. Several law enforcement officers that I'm close with, as well as several of my attorneys, inform me that these actions or lack thereof rise to the level of kidnapping and retaliation against the witness and or tampering with the witness, among a litany of other crimes and violations. The timeline that I have established plausibly infers retaliation against my civil rights by both Homestead and Miami-Dade police officers. Major Byrd, I sent you an email on April the 23rd to which you have failed to respond. In this letter, I described how Officer Diaz agreed that my evidence was both substantial and that specifically under the Miami-Dade Police Manual, Chapter 12, Part 1, Section III, Subheading A, Paragraph 3, that he does not have discretion but is actually obligated to effect an arrest. However, he stated to me that his supervisor, which I must assume at this point is you, had decided that my issues are too complicated and over his or your head, and as such the Miami-Dade Police Department will not take my case or act on any of my evidence. Even based on the evidence the officers were in possession of at the time of my arrest, namely statements made by Alejandro Merguido, there was no probable cause for the arrest present, as the necessary elements of the crimes had not been met. This is true even if we are to ignore the multiple inconsistencies in his different statements and consider them to be true, while also viewing them in the light most favorable to the officer. It is noted why an officer will retain their qualified immunity for a mistake of fact, they do not generally have qualified immunity for a mistake of the law. Further, Alejandro Merguido even admits in his statements that I was criticizing the performance of his police duties. This is speech of public concern and is therefore protected under the First Amendment, and is activity which is explicitly exempted from the statutes for which I was falsely arrested. The landmark United States Supreme Court case Hill v. Houston specifically states, the freedom of individuals verbally to oppose or challenge police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. Your inaction, Major Byrd, would appear to infer that you do not see this as a free nation. It is unconscionable that the Miami-Dade Police Department would make an arrest of me based solely on the testimony of Aliana Merguido, which testimony is easily demonstrated as fabricated. But conversely, that they would then fail to make an arrest based on the evidence that I have presented, where the evidence I have presented is substantial and includes audio recordings as well as sworn statements and public records. Further, the evidence presented to you and Officer Diaz clearly indicates that Aliana Merguido has committed at least the crimes of perjury, simulated use of legal process, fabrication of evidence, and retaliation against / tampering with the witness, and that he has committed such actions with malice. It is also noted that the copies of Aliana Merguido's personnel file that I have provided you with shows that he has a history of making false statements and retaliating against civilians, as well as his propensity towards dangerous driving. All of this supports my allegations that I have made. These are felony violations of Florida law, which were committed within your jurisdiction. A proper investigation here may uncover evidence that could be exculpatory to several Miami-Dade police officers that I currently must anticipate filing suit against. Lack of appropriate action would also appear to be a class of 1 type discrimination and a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, as you are treating one type of citizen, a police officer, differently than you're treating a second class of citizen, a civilian. Further, your failure to take appropriate action serves to obstruct, delay, and/or prevent the communication of my evidence relating to the commission of a felony, which directly affects your agency and department. As such, it creates a prima facie case of official misconduct, which is a 3rd-degree felony under Florida Statute 838.022, Section 1, Paragraph 3. It is expected to prevent any appearance of collusion that you would immediately begin to take the necessary corrective actions. This will help to prevent any further deprivation of my rights under color of law and continued denial of my rights to due process. I would like to thank everyone again for their time and for listening to my story. And I now request that Major Byrd give a response.
Mr. McDonough, I am vaguely familiar with your case that you're talking about. It did occur prior to my assignment here. It is my understanding that the Police Legal Bureau as well as the Professional Compliance Bureau are currently investigating your case. All the information that you've sent to me was promptly forwarded to those 2 entities.
I had requested that information not be sent to the Public Corruption Bureau. I'm sure you're well aware, as the lieutenant and many other officers in the Public Corruption Bureau have been arrested for corruption, for plotting murders, for dealing drugs, for giving sensitive information to the DEA. And this actually has nothing to do with the Miami-Dade police officer, the allegation I gave you. It was a Homestead officer who committed violations of the law outside of his jurisdiction, inside of your jurisdiction. And, you know, there are many civil rights violations that will be pursued in the future, but it would be most proper for you to begin to arrest Officer Merguido for the violations of Florida law he has made. And again, as I said, when you do such, it will most likely uncover exculpatory information that would clear some of your officers.
Mr. McDonough, I assure you that no one is ignoring your case. I was instructed that the Professional Compliance Bureau had an open investigation with regard to your case, so they're working this case.
That's a separate case. They're 2 separate things.
This information was forwarded to them, and they said it's part of that ongoing case.
Well, that's incorrect. I want to know now that since I have presented you with evidence that even Officer Robert Diaz agreed was more than substantial to show felony violations of Florida law within this jurisdiction, is somebody going to effect an arrest, or will this be forwarded to the FBI or FDLE or Department of Justice or State's Attorney's Office? When I called Officer Diaz, he told me specifically, he wouldn't tell me who his supervisor was, but he said that after speaking with them, that they said that Miami-Dade would not take my case, and he attempted to send me to the FDLE. I informed him that I had already been to the FDLE, and they specifically stated that they would not take complaints from citizens, but they would only get involved in the investigation if the police requested them to. So I'm now asking you, will you request them to get involved in the investigation, and will you forward them my evidence so we don't continue to further prevent, delay, and obstruct the transmission of my evidence?
I will forward this information again. It's an open investigation through our agency. I will forward this information and convey your sentiment about it, that it be forwarded to FDLE through our agency.
Okay, is there any reason that Officer Diaz would have told me after speaking with the supervisors that they had decided that they would not pursue the case?
I can't speak for Officer Diaz, and I don't know what supervisor he spoke with that instructed him.
But you hadn't spoke with Officer Diaz?
I have not spoken with Officer Diaz with regard to your case.
Okay, so it would be somebody most likely in between you and him in the chain of command?
I would assume so, but I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay, because I also had sent you the email and forwarded the evidence to you as well, so you should have that on record.
I do.
Okay. Well, the evidence, the case I was given to the PCB was about Lieutenant Diaz D. Villegas and several other Miami-Dade police officers, and that's separate and severable from the felony violations under Florida law committed by Officer Merguido, which is not related to the federal civil rights claims that will be brought forward. And so I would really appreciate it that if you or somebody in your department would follow the Miami-Dade SOP manual as it specifically states that you have no discretion but are obligated to effect the arrest. If not, if it's, as Officer Diaz's words, not mine, over anybody's heads here, then I would expect no less than it be forwarded with a request to the FDLE and the State's Attorney's Office as well as the FBI and Department of Justice. Thank you.
You came to CAC before, I remember you.
Yeah.
How long ago was that then?
I've been several times. Every time I've come here, I've gotten really funny answers from police officers. You remember the last time I was here when I was asking if it was common policy for Miami-Dade police officers to refuse to inform people of what they were being arrested for when they made an arrest without a warrant.
Was that?
That was probably in December. And one of the officers here tried to explain to me that as I was given my arrest forms 4 to 6 hours later in the jail, that officers had to know what I was being arrested for, and that made me informed. Even though the statute specifically says the person to be arrested shall be informed, not the person arrested 6 hours later. I can also have a timeline that shows retaliation, and because I had come to the meetings, and after I was detained in October of 2012, nothing happened until I called the internal affairs for both Miami-Dade and Homestead, who blocked me and forwarded me, and I came to the Citizens Advisory Committee. And you're correct, Major Byrd. It was Major Artime who was here before, and he was very nasty with me and not willing to talk to me, but he was willing to have his officers arrest me, which I find it very funny that Major Artime, who was involved in the double billing scandal in Panama, which is an economic crime, is now the major of the Economics Crime Bureau for Miami-Dade Police Department.
That's Miami. Major Byrd, I just wanted to clarify real quick. So you have been presented with evidence against Officer?
I've received his emails.
And you've reviewed those emails?
I've read his emails, yes.
And you have not affected any kind of disciplinary action against Officer Merguido for his actions?
Again, I will repeat that I forwarded his information to Professional Compliance Bureau. I know there was an ongoing dispute before I got here. I know he's dealt with Professional Compliance Bureau with regard to those issues, and that information has been forwarded.
Well, actually, I tried to have a meeting with the Professional Compliance Bureau. It lasted approximately a minute before I was forced to leave and now have claims against 3 more officers for retaliation and intimidation.
So that seems to be kind of a common theme here, where nothing gets done because of either lack of interest, lack of knowledge, or passing off information to somebody else to do such a thing. Like, we're going to pass this up the chain, but you're one of the top people in the chain who could at least affect disciplinary action against one of your officers, correct?
Yes, once that's been sustained against an officer.
But if evidence has been...
Officer Merguido's Homestead officer.
Okay, so but these were committed
There's probably
outside
20 to 30 officers altogether, maybe 35, most of them being Miami-Dade police that will have criminal charges pressed against them and federal civil rights suits. But this is not what I'm here about. I'm here about simple felony violations of Florida law that were committed within this jurisdiction for South District.
Who is you?
I'm just nobody.
Okay, I'm just. What are your names?
I'm a good friend of his.
Okay.
And what do you?
I used to be in law enforcement.
That's correct.
Yeah. So my
Let
question
me
then,
ask you all a question. What do you all want Major
if crimes were
Byrd to
committed
do?
under
job.
Right, hold on. She's doing
Wait
her
a
job.
second.
First of all, you all don't know our procedure. You all here talking, but you all don't know our procedure. But she told you what we were doing. We forward information like we're supposed to forward to our Professional Compliance Bureau. Once they complete their investigation, there's nothing we will do and can do until they finish their investigation. And then we will take action if we're told to take certain action. That's how the process works.
correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not what the Florida statute
Well, I'm
And it's
telling
not
you,
what Miami-Dade policy
that is
says.
fine. I'm telling you what we're gonna do. We're here, we're gonna
You
go back.
don't wait to get told to arrest
I'm telling you, we're going back and
It's your
forth.
job to arrest
Y'all-
somebody
I'm glad y'all
by
here.
your own policy.
Y'all going back and forth for no reason. It's not going anywhere.
That's what we don't understand, and that's what we're here to understand.
Just,
is if you have
we're gonna
policy and
join
guidelines.
this meeting with you talking
And
about
this is what happens. Brothers cover brothers
This is
in the
ugly.
brotherhood of the police.
Hey,
we're not talking about this anymore.
One another.
Okay, let's.
We're finished with this.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on.
We're gonna adjourn this meeting.
Again, I'm the,
Well, thank you. I'll follow up with that, and I'll give you a call, maybe file a public records request just to see everything that I can see, and hopefully I won't have to name any more people in my civil rights complaint than I absolutely have to. I've been trying to work with you so we can settle this amicably, and everybody just wants to shit in my face, but